Commentators examining witchcraft in Britain have questioned the conviction of its practitioners regarding the ancient origins of British Wiccan traditions and have asserted that there is no continuity in British Wicca. The cunning-folk tradition, however, is different. It has been identified as an older magical practice in Britain than Wicca, one which has continued into the 20th century. To date, there has been little agreement over whether there is any continuity of practice falling within the cunning-folk tradition into the 21st century. Many academics, however, have claimed that the continuity lies in the nature of their business. Witchcraft was the glue that held the concept of cunning folk together, and when the unbewitching business dries up, cunning folk soon cease to exist both in practice and in popular discourses. However, the witches and pagans in fieldwork that I have worked on were fully engaged with the concept of a continuity of practice of the cunning folk and expressed this in their interviews in my new book, The Witches' Ways in the Welsh Borders. Academic witchcraft literature in the 1960s was largely written by the scholars who assumed that belief in witchcraft represented the continuity of medieval delusion and superstition. Within this critical frame, people like Margaret Murray was discredited as serious scholars by all but few who still accepted aspects of her fieldwork such as Vivian Crowley, Carlos Ginsberg and Ralph Merrifield. Merrifield is an archaeologist and sometime deputy director of the Museum of London, made valid points in the past about how great Murray's work was, and re-evaluated it. Nevertheless, the pendulum may have swung too far, and as we've seen in abundant archaeological evidence for many ritual practices, there are a number of recent folk customs that can be reasonably reinterpreted as survivals of fertility rites. Local cunning folk and witches, as practitioners of traditional magic, healing and ritualistic ceremonies, have been part of the Welsh Borderlands around the Wye Valley and the Forest of Dean for many centuries, and their ways have come down from the ancient past. My book will take you on a journey where the greenwood, spirituality, the ritualised practices, the lifestyles and folklore all come together to form the basis of an anthropological look at the cunning folk ways and ancient and contemporary analysis of witchcraft in the Welsh Borderlands. The book covers discovered evidence suggesting that local cunning folk engage with ancient practices of Celtic deity worship, involving an early British goddess and consort. The term Wiccan, which noted normally has two C's, is often used to describe most witchcraft practices today, and has been, I feel, misunderstood for years, and expressly distinct from contemporary cunning folk and witches who are, shall we say, Wiccan with one C, and all that entails in their traditions and rituals. The nature of this surprising distinction is discussed and evaluated within the book. The book also conveys the history of practitioners of magic and witchcraft in the Borderlands of Albion and Cymru from as far back as the 14th century. It is the first contemporary academic study ever done on cunning folk living in this area. Most primary written evidence of witchcraft has been handed down from the 19th and early 20th century writers. However, one rarely known writer called Margaret Eyre, who lived in the Wye Valley in the 19th century, made unique records of interviews identifying ancestral, familial and local attachments to cunning folk. Much of the information never came to light and was therefore never acknowledged by writers until today. Even the Folklore Society have not, at this moment, picked up on this great lady. Little is known of Margaret Eyre's role in the Folklore Society, but she was a key player, unlocking a secret occult history of this area and uncovering continuous local traditions of witchcraft, which has been carried down to the 21st century and which has been discovered by myself and now has been re-evaluated in the light of new discoveries. I hope you enjoy the book.